What's up, Workforce? Brian here for Work to Game. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's just do this thing. Alright, Workforce, let's just jump into it. Patch 4.0 notes, just the highlights. There is a ton of content that are in the patch notes, and obviously the link is in the description below if you want to go sit through and read it. But what I wanted to do is focus in on the things that really stood out to me, and I thought were really interesting changes, and I wanted to highlight here for you guys today. I'd love to know your thoughts. What are you most excited about with these notes? Obviously, there's another document coming later today that's going to be focusing in on the jobs. And I know the people of Reddit are doing data mining on the game in and of itself right now. So just be warned, you could run into spoilers if you dig too deeply. That all being said, here are my patch note highlights. So they said we're finally going to get an Aetheryte near the market boards in Ulda, and this is the case. The Sapphire Avenue Exchange. This is a new Aetheryte in which that will allow us to teleport to the markets in Ulda. It always was the hardest one to get to out of all the various cities. Now this was also interesting as well. New trade and fieldcraft leaves are available in new areas. However, Battlecraft leaves will not be in any of the new areas with the 4.0 stuff. So all the stuff that exists today looks like it's still going to be there. But this was surprising. I was expecting we might see something with the Battlecraft leave system like we did with Heavensward, but it doesn't appear to be that case. And it seems like they're just more focusing in on the crafting and the gathering. So I don't know what to take from that. Battlecraft leaves are really not even on my purview. I was always hoping they'd do something different with them. This is cool. So new fates have been added. Big surprise. But there's experience bonuses that come along with it. And so you can see that the fate has an XP bonus. And then you can see that if you get your XP bonus success, they take it even a step further. When you're looking at the fate, if the fate does have an XP bonus, you can see it within the little window and even in your recommendations list. So they not only introduced something that's interesting and exciting, but they also helped incentivize it further. I personally hope this goes well beyond XP bonuses in the later part of the game, because at some point when you're not leveling, fates just kind of sit there and they don't do much. But we've talked about that before, and I'll continue to talk about it again. Now, there are also special enemies that should be appearing sometimes in the course of any given fate, and this seems to be really interesting. And if the players who participate in the fate and defeat the enemy, there literally will be like a new buff that comes, a Twist of Fate buff. It looks like it includes a dramatic experience boost to the players, even if you don't successfully complete the fate. Man, that's exciting. Hopefully that helps just keep people busy doing those fates and doing those things in the open world. So I was wondering about Wondrous Tales and what they're planning on doing with it, and it appears that once you hit level 70, you're going to get a whole new row for Wondrous Tales, which is pretty interesting. And that they'll actually shift up the objectives of the Wondrous Tales at level 70. So that system is still going to be in place, and they're going to enhance it as soon as you hit level 70. For those of you who are wondering how to unlock Samurai and Red Mage, those quests begin in Ulda. So the Way of the Samurai starts in Ulda and the Steps of Null, and you can see the address here, but I'm sure you'll be able to locate it once you get in game. And then Taking the Red is also in Ulda. So both these jobs begin in Ulda, which is really good to know. Pretty much a lot of people have them unlocked and have met the unlock conditions already. So I expect to see Ulda probably heavily populated for a short period of time there. They've added sprint animations, and we've kind of seen this with like the Gamer Escape videos and the Media Tour videos, and they're just kind of letting us know. I think this is really cool, especially because sprint takes no TP in 4.0, that it seems that there's a nice little charge animation. I like how the Paladin looks. He doesn't appear to have kind of that gap closer ability, but being able to utilize sprint and charge in with the shield with the sword ready, I think looks awesome, and hopefully will help kind of offset the difference there. I love this line. Attribute points have been removed. For those of you who don't know, because apparently it's a lot of you, you could, as you level, randomly get attribute points in which you could slot however you want. The thing is, there was a right answer, and it was always your main stat for your job. So that was always just kind of like, you're not really giving us, you're giving us a choice, but you're more or less giving us the ability to make the wrong choice. So that's done, and that should hopefully help the Summoner Scholar split. That should hopefully help set us up for 5.0 with more changes that we'll see at that point. They've adjusted the weakness and brink of death status effects. So before, all main attributes were reduced by 15% for 120 seconds. Now they're reduced by 25%, and it's strength, dexterity, intelligence, and mind. So you don't see vitality reduced there as well. And then the time, so those have been increased, and yet the time that it takes has been decreased by 20 seconds. Then you've got Brink of Death, which was at 30%, and so then you see the same stats now reduced by 50%, and the duration, again, is 100 seconds. So the reduction in time, increasing of the potency for those particular stats, but some stats are not being played into. It's important to note that Piety is no longer a main stat, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but that's why you don't see it listed here as well. So tons of player attributes have been adjusted. The calculation for the attack power of jobs designated as tanks has been adjusted. The calculation for magic attack has been adjusted for the healers. The parry attribute has been changed to tenacity. So this is a tank specific stat, which is essentially the more you have, the better you block or the better you defend, and the more you output in DPS. Accuracy has been changed to critical hit. All this has been talked about. Like we said, piety is no longer a main attribute. Piety is also not a bonus that comes with the party bonus system. Skill speed actually now affects auto attacks, so that is actually interesting to see how that plays out in the long run. The effects of determination have been increased. The base potency modifier for critical hits has been reduced. Blocks and parries no longer are limited to attacks from the front, and block now also applies to magical damage, so this is fantastic. The ability to remove certain detrimental effects is visible, so you can see with the blue little line above it, you can actually remove that, and the ones that cannot will not have that blue line. I think that's such a nice little subtle change. It's going to be very handy, especially when you're learning fights, to say, oh, I can actually take that off. Now, hopefully, as a healer, I'll be able to pay attention. So completing a level 51 to 59 and a level 61 to 69 dungeon, players are always going to be guaranteed to receive a piece of gear that is equipable for their job. This is a nice little change. It should hopefully help players be able to gear up, especially as they add more and more jobs to the system and then in the future. So this is going to be nice so that you're not always just like, I'm never getting anything useful by running this dungeon over and over again. Hopefully this helps kind of offset some of the RNG already in the system. And to make it even better, you will not receive a piece of gear that's already in your inventory. So if you already have it, it's going to pick something else. So ideally, doing multiple runs should ensure you full sets of gear for these dungeons. And especially when they become not used for leveling, and if you want to go get those gear sets to be able to glamour, this I think is pretty critical and hopefully will help players who really want to have a particular look be able to kind of ensure that process, with this change. One of the things they didn't do for Heaven's Word, and they eventually brought in, I think with 3.1, was adding the ability to get experience from the level 50 dungeons. So they changed that, and then at the start, at least they say the 60 dungeons will now also grant experience. So we'll be able to use those to level up, which is fantastic. I really appreciate them making that change at the start rather than having it happen sometime later in the patch series. So this is really exciting. So the Algin Tombstone change really actually surprised me. I thought we would have Poetics, I thought we'd keep Scripture, and then we'd have the new Verity and eventually the Creation Tomes here in a couple weeks. But what they're doing is that Scripture and Lower are out, they're done, and everything's going to kind of go Poetic. So you're going to see, like, for ARR and for Heaven's Word, Poetics are the currency in which that you can get the various gears that way. From that perspective, and then everything's shifting to Verity and essentially Creation. So that's really surprising, and actually I think in the grand scheme of it, a actually good change. It keeps Poetics, it keeps all that older content relevant. You can actually now gear up 60s with Poetics and things like that. So there's some various good changes there. I'm actually kind of excited about it. Verity is not capped. You can hold a maximum of 2,000, and you start getting them once you hit level 70. And Creation will be coming here, I think, in 2 to 4 weeks, if my memory serves me right. And also, like, if you're holding on to esoterics, they're gone. So sorry about that. So they've actually now gone and combined both the duty and the raid finder together. And you can see that here in the images right here. So regular duty, high-end duty. So you'll see all those, and then you can switch over here and you're going to see the various extreme duties, which are really important in this case. So I like that change. I think that interface change is pretty well done. It, kind of always was segmented and separated. Now it's together within one control, and doing it with the tab seems to make a lot of sense. They're going to enable Frontline Freelancer by default. Thank you very much. I always thought it was weird. It's like, I just want to play. If I want to specifically, help the adders out, then yeah, I'll go make that change. But that's a really good change. And also, changes to the duty finder will carry over when forming other parties with players. The item level requirements will no longer be applied when you're in an undersized party. Players will now be able to use the undersized party option for the content released in Heaven's Word. This is awesome and exciting. It really makes those unsynced battles a lot of fun to really kind of go get your clears on some of the harder content at a higher level. We can get into that, but I love it. And language settings are going to be ignored for players matching with a feast because you can't communicate, so why does it matter? All good changes there, in my opinion. So this also surprised me. One of the things I've been like, well, maybe we just need to get rid of the expert roulette. What is the expert roulette? It's just there. And they're keeping it, but they're combining the 50s and the 60s dungeons together. So they're all going to be in one roulette there. We'll have leveling, trial, main scenario, frontline, and mentor. So the surprise was that we're not having a 50s roulette and a 60s roulette. That's all getting put together. Not necessarily a bad decision in my opinion, But, you know, we've had conversations like, you know, people have said, why do you want one less roulette? And it seems like we're getting that. Hopefully we get more content to offset it. Personally, I think that makes the 50s and the 60s dungeons, that roulette in and of itself, you know, you're pulling from a wide range of dungeons. So hopefully that helps keep it fresh and exciting and, you know, obviously interesting, because now we're going to be both getting poetics and variety. So that, I think, in and of itself should hopefully keep, you know, all that content relevant. So some adjustments have been made to the Palace of the Dead. We're getting cross-world party finding matching in for Palace of the Dead. This is going to be great, especially for anybody in the workforce who wants to play that content together. So I'm looking forward to that. But then also that they are saying the role actions, that if you've got them learned and assigned, they're available immediately. But as you level, you're not going to have access to those role, you know, actions that you haven't learned. I thought that was an interesting, pretty much take on it, but it makes sense. So it seems though, as a part of the cross-world party thing, is that all players have to actually be in the South Shroud. So it seems like an interesting change to be able to, you know, but it also a good one to be able to register and go from there. However, if the person in the other world's not in the South Shroud, I could see that there could be some trolling or some frustrations that are built up around that. Hopefully it comes as no surprise. I'm a huge fan of PvP, and the changes that they're making and they've talked about are substantial, and I'm very excited to get my hands on with it. Namely that you can be level 30 and you can get in. But they talk about, you know, the matches. So it was the Feast 8-on-8 match party. Now it's Feast 8-on-8 training match. Feast solo versus Feast rank match. So they're combining and consolidating some things. You can see the changes that we're going to have the Feast and the front line. So you got Borderland, Ruin, Secure, Seal Rock, Siege, Fields of Glory, Shatter. So they're no longer broken up by the different level requirements. I think this is going to be great because some of those modes are really good. What we don't see, and what we see down here a little bit lower, is that Slaughter has been removed. Obviously we're losing the Fold, not a big deal. I thought Slaughter was a good mode, but I guess that if you got to have and you want to try to funnel people into the different types of front lines, having it was just an extra kind of distraction. I hope maybe they bring it back at some point, or we see something fun brought in with the new system that's coming with 4.1. And maybe we'll see something with front lines. I'd like to see kind of a rotating playlist there to kind of force a lot of people into the same kind of playlist as opposed to spreading it all out across the 3 different modes. But that's just me, and I'd love to know your thoughts on that. So you can see a lot of adjustments have been made to PvP. So the Feast, Frontlines, and Duels now require a job at level 30 or higher. You cannot change to a class in any of these instances that allow you to change your job. So classes are not allowed as a part of any of the PvP. Attributes are no longer level based, but instead use fixed PvP values. So it's not like you're level syncing up. It's just that, you know, it doesn't matter. Here are your stats for this job in PvP. Go nuts. So no level sync or item sync is applied to gear because gear doesn't matter. It's just for cosmetic, you know, appearances there. So action points, action elements, action presets have been removed. Morale has been removed, thankfully. That was just a weird stat that eventually just became useless. The following changes no longer function in PvP areas. So no auto attack, block, parry, critical hits, or direct hits are applied. The subcommand attack can no longer be used. Job-based attack bonuses have been removed. Spells no longer are interrupted when taking damage. This is a huge change. Healers can rejoice. Black mages can rejoice. They made some adjustments earlier on, but now this is kind of full on. You know what? You're casting. You're going to get your cast off. I guess this is going to make crowd control way more you know, apparent and needed because you want to use that silence because there's no hit in the world that you're going to do that's going to interrupt that cast. I guess if there's a knockback, that's, you know, considered crowd control. So you're also going to gain immunity as the certain spells wear off to stun, heavy, bind, slow, sleep, and silence. And no damage penalty for ranged, you know, melee. So, you know, Bard and Machinist aren't going to have that damage penalty that's incurred as the targets get closer. So that's actually really interesting. It seems like they're really kind of trying to even things out. We're going to see how it plays, and we'll see what comes back and what doesn't. Then they show off the PvP like menu for the action so you can see the job and the combos, and they talk about how the combo is going to show what's a part of it. And then here are the abilities, and we've talked about this before, that you can pick. You can pick 2 additional abilities. So you see Bolt is one of them. Sprint is no longer viable in PvP, but you can choose Bolt, you can choose Purify, Muse, like all these abilities, you know, are going to offer something, and it's going to allow you to have, you know, a little bit slightly different of a build, you know, because these are in addition to your job abilities. And then you can pick 3 different traits, and you can see them listed here on the screen. Personally, depending on what I'm playing, you know, I hope this is also linked to the job that I'm on, as opposed to if I have to go and change these additions and traits every time I change a job, then that'll be a little bit annoying, but you can see that I think it's going to work out pretty well. And then we're also getting PvP hotbars, so no trying to futz with the UI using macros and things that I've set up in the 4. So all those videos are irrelevant. here we go, you're in PvP, you have PvP actions and hotbars, and then your PvE, you have PvE actions and hotbars. You can also not use PvE skills in PvP, so that's a huge change. Very excited about that. Shifting off of PvP, Matera can now be affixed to gear and weapons without the use of carbonized matter. That means they're adjusting a lot of things there. It seems like, you know, you still have the affixing NPCs, and you can do it yourself if you've got the level crafting. But it seems like carbonized matter might be on its way out. You know, this kind of removes the gathering portion of it, and hopefully we see Matera start to be used more and more as time goes on. Now here they're showing some images in which that if it takes job points, you can see that's been adjusted. The color TB cost numbers has also been adjusted for actions and skills that are going to require the use of the job gauge, which is very job specific. So obviously that seems like it's a natural thing. So they've also adjusted the party finder. So you can see here they've got some examples of what it's looking like, and then when you're going to do recruitment, the form that you got here, as well as the additional options you have here. So the objective, playstyle, conditions, they've added in a lot more information. I think this is going to hopefully help players out. And then you can see here when you're recruiting, you know, beginners, first timers, welcome, data center, world, blah, 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 blah. All of this I think is really exciting and to see. I'm a huge fan of the party finder, and hopefully it's something that we get to see really take advantage of in Stormblood, and as well as probably for previous content. You know, Wondrous Tales have been a huge thing and a huge boost by the cross-world party finder, and it seems like we're getting more improvements there. And finally, whenever you set up a cross-world party finder, if you want to invite friends and characters from your world into that, you can do so. Previously, once you went cross-world party finder, you literally had to tell your friends, hey, go find us in the party finder, and then join that way. This is going to solve that problem, and I think it's probably for the best. I'm very excited about that. So they talk about display adjustments. So here's a critical hit, here's just a direct hit, and then here is a critical and a direct hit. You get the exclamation marks and you get the bigger text. I think this is really cool and exciting. And honestly, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And then we also, you know, they had a post that Yoshi P is bringing in the letter D as a part of these waymarks. It looks like we're also getting the number 1 and 2. Who knows if we're getting any more, but this is a lot of waymarks, and hopefully this helps, especially with 24-man content, to be able to segment like, all right, you're group 2, you're group 1, you're group C, go forward and conquer and have fun. Thank you, Yoshi P, for this next change. The regional maps have been adjusted. You can see here that you can see all the various aetherytes that are and where they are. You can see quests and things that are on the map. And if a quest is obviously in an instance area like the Waking Sands, you can see it right here. You can see it on your map. One of the things that was always like, okay, where do I need to go? You can kind of get lost, and it's great to see that brought in. And then from a main scenario quest perspective, it's a nice little helper tool which is going to be displayed to help you kind of, you know, hey, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? So this should hopefully help, especially if somebody completes the quest, logs out, takes a week off, comes back, and it's like, oh, you know, they don't pick up the next quest. Hopefully this helps alleviate that issue. We talked about no longer assigning attribute points, but you can see that the character window has been adjusted. And one of the greatest changes is they've kind of broken up Disciples of War and Magic and Disciples in Land and Hand, and thus allowing tanks melee. You can see the roles listed here on the image itself. But whenever you switch to the job, whenever you unlock the job, you can see that it changes to the job itself because it was always remaining classes. So classes are now seeming to be regulated more to crafting and gathering, and it's just another step in the way of getting rid of the class system altogether with probably 5.0. Alright guys, this is probably what everybody's been waiting for. Armory chest expansion. It looks like it's been increased from 25 to 35 per slot. You can see the additional space here. This is fantastic. Oh, anyway, this is just going to be a huge relief on me and a lot of players. And then obviously we get our inventory expansion, and you can see it, you know, and just like, oh, so it's been grown from 100 to 140. So this is just a ton of space, especially when you factor in the armory chest, which is a huge space saver in and of itself. And lastly, in order to reduce the server congestion, especially with the release of 4.0, if you're inactive for 30 minutes, they will kick you out automatically. This is pretty standard for like expansions, and eventually they will actually remove that as a requirement as kind of server populations calm down, and, you know, and kind of that evens out. So I don't know if you guys tried to log in the last couple of weeks, but I know this last day we were having, you know, login queues, which was really exciting, as I guess people were really hyped up for Stormblood. But that's the patch notes. This is a huge video. I tried to summarize it as best I can. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments below what you're excited about, what you're looking forward to seeing in Stormblood, and let's have that conversation. It is not much longer. If you didn't know, you can go patch right now, both PlayStation and PC. I've got both our systems updated and ready to go tomorrow morning. But I just want to thank you so much for watching this video, hanging out with us here. be sure to check out our live stream for Stormblood. We'll be doing some stuff there. And also, we got plenty of videos that we've got planned for the changes that are coming to the battle systems. For Work to Game, my name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next. But most importantly, hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in Stormblood.
Hey, it's me. I'm in Chris's office. He doesn't know it, but we've got other videos for you to check out right here. And we've got the vlog down there in the corner. Plus, we've got some contact information, and you can totally subscribe to the channel that way as well. So we hope you do. We hope to see you in our next video. But until then, take care.